Okay, so for the last part of this video simulation, we'll review the second file. The second file is called M2 file 2pcap, and it's actually, there's a sizable difference with this file. It's an event log, syslog. So what happened is the intrusion detection actually collected some of this information, and we were able to save it. Saving it, it will show the different alarms and triggers that were matched for activity patterns. And what we're seeing here is kind of the synopsis of this activity. What we're not seeing is source and destination. 514 is because the default syslog port. What we are seeing is the actual connection. So we have to look into the message. If you noticed, there's a lot of activity in the message field, and we see the timestamp. So using the timestamp and the actual message field, we can figure out what happened. Notice that there's 85 total events, and we are only displaying 10 of them. So I had to go in and show the rest of these events. We can export all these results into a file. So if I go in and save this, I can do it, save, put it on our desktop, and from the desktop, we call it packet total. Let's see, open it here. So again, it looks like we have to import it in a format. This is comma delimited. Let's see what that looks like. So we look at the timestamp, and we're seeing the actual message. Within the message, we can actually see the source address. We can see sometimes part of the message and the actual error, the command that was executed. Anonymous FTP from this address with password Mozilla. We can see that there was session open user nobody. And we can how we can take this, again, look into the date timestamp, go back into Wireshark, make sure that you subtract 4 hours from this timestamp when you look into Wireshark. So the packet total time minus 4 hours will equal the Wireshark time. And this will help you kind of put together what happened. So now between Wireshark and packet total, you're going to have a timeline. In the timeline, let's say that it starts on the 15th, and from the 15th, from let's say 8 o'clock until the, maybe the 19th or whatever was the last occurrence, the 17th, you have now different activities that are taking place, and using the information from packet total, the first and the second file, as well as looking up the additional details using Wireshark follow TCP stream, and the frame contains a keyword, you'll be able to put pieces of the puzzle together and figure out what happened. This is network forensics, and the reason why we're doing all this complicated stuff is so we understand the cyber kill chain. The cyber kill chain starts with different processes and tasks. So what we're looking for is, once you compile your story together, you should find out there's a step of reconnaissance, port scanning, and weaponization. So there was maybe a vulnerability or something that was discovered and then delivered and exploited. And how was it delivered? Maybe it's through remote. You saw the vulnerability, you tried to execute the code remotely. There was an actual exploitation. In this exploitation, there was user account created, there was malware downloaded, and there was commands executed, and then the output sent out to a remote system through email. So then we're looking into the actual installation. The malware was installed. There was a command and control, which was an indicator of the successful connection established with the target, the different malware installed, access to FTP Romania, and the action or objective was data exfiltration, and indicative of the email with the username and password hashes sent out. So that's how we're, through doing these network forensics and investigation, we can certainly identify the mode of operation. And if all these are kind of figuring in there, what we should have identified is that our opportunity to stop was at the reconnaissance. Some of the attempts, like the failed telnet or rlogin, great. But as soon as we see these, we should actually, blacklist the IP addresses so they cannot try again. What we're seeing also from deciphering this activity, does the attacker IP address change? They could be in Korea, Canada, international. They could be using multiple IP addresses, multiple attackers. The whole premise of the criminal enterprise. It's not individual acting, necessarily. It's a group of individuals who are certain objective, more targeted type of attacks. Certainly, different time and resources that can help them achieve the objectives. With all of this in mind, understanding the kill chain and the different phases of an attack, again, we can hopefully more proactively disrupt, stop, or detect these attacks so they don't achieve the actual objective of system compromise, data exfiltration, and so on. With this also in mind, we understand hopefully the different phases that a pen tester would take. They go into very similar nature with reconnaissance, weaponizations, looking for vulnerabilities, delivering these vulnerabilities through a tool or manual process, like using exploit DB, finding the exploit and launching it manually. The actual exploitation, the installation of backdoor or persistence, lateral movement, remote control, to understand the impact, and then action objectives. In our objectives, we're not exfiltrating data. We are putting a marker like, Vel was here. Or this is a proof of concept that you left a door wide open in the form of NFS share without any user authentication required, and so on. So what is the objective of this? The objective is to make sure you identify what is the attacker's source IP address, the actual port used, what is the target IP address, and the different ports used throughout the attack. What is the first sign of the attack, and what did it do? That's going back into the port map and the port scan. Are there any indicators of compromise? Were there any successful connections established with some of these IP addresses that executed attacks? Was there a user account created? Was there files transferred? Were there any indicators of exfiltration, of compromise? And obviously we found artifacts in the form of malware. We found an email with the executed malware script that has the username and passwords and it was sent out. And kind of what happened throughout the attack. There was a port scan. There was a successful vulnerability exploit in the form of FTP or through the RPC port map service. And then we see that there was a user account created, there was malware downloaded, commands executed, persistence established, information sent back to a foreign host. So in a nutshell, that's the assignment for this week.